Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a wonderful show for you this evening. Mindy Lindheim, aka Schmiiindy, is here. So we're going to talk about her aviation story, about selling aircraft, about her new Hartzell propeller, and so much more. Cannot wait for this. She is truly wonderful, and it's going to be great to actually get a chance for all of you to meet her live and in person here on SocialFlight Live. Before we get started, just a few things. Everything is absolutely booming inside SocialFlight, and I encourage you to go check it out. We have tens of thousands of aviation events and destinations. We have so many online things. If the weather is cold and snowy, or it's something in your part of the world and getting out there to the airport, it just isn't in the cards, well, open up SocialFlight and see what you can go and log into and learn and be able to kind of improve your flying and get a chance to stay in touch with General Aviation a little bit more. And as part of that, we have SocialFlight's Learning Center. That's right. When you go on socialflight.com or on the app, there's a little FAA credits section, and we have all the different courses out there from so many different providers that you can take for wings credit. If you are a mechanic, if you happen to have your A&P, then we have AMT, Aviation Maintenance Technician Awards Program education. Anyone can watch it, of course, even if you're not an A&P. And if you happen to be a mechanic with inspection authorization, well, March is about to be upon us, and that is when all those IA renewals happen. All your recurring education, those 8 hours of recurring education that you need, is inside SocialFlight, completely free. We'll print out certificates of completion for you for your IA renewal, and there is still time to get all of that done. So all of that, all our destinations, it's all there just to support you and to support General Aviation. And then the last thing is I'd like to announce we have our latest Fly to Win Challenge winner, and that is Robert Kelly of Chugiak, Alaska, who won a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset, and congratulations to him. All you need to do is have the SocialFlight mobile app and just check in at your local airport. The more you check in, the more points you get, but even one check-in and you're entered into the drawing. If you get on our leaderboard, well, then you have more entries into that drawing and a better chance to win, and we're giving away another Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset on April 1st. So hop in there and you may be our next winner. Now on to tonight's guest. I am so excited. Mindy Lindheim is best known throughout aviation for her Schmiiindy YouTube and Instagram channels, where she shares her experiences, stories, and insights as she explores the country in her vintage Cessna 182 Mojo. In addition to her media presence, Mindy is an aircraft broker, a pilot, aviation professional, all dedicated to helping clients navigate the buying and selling process with expertise and efficiency. As part of Lone Mountain Aircraft, she combines industry knowledge with a personalized approach to ensure a seamless experience for aircraft owners and buyers. I'm telling you, if you are looking for an aircraft or considering selling yours, I can't imagine a better opportunity than to work with Mindy. Beyond aircraft brokerage, of course, Mindy is also a writer for Twin Turbine magazine, where she shares adventures, aviation stories, and educational pieces from her own personal experiences. I am absolutely thrilled to have her with us here tonight. Please welcome to SocialFlight Live, Mindy Schmiiindy Lindheim.
Hello, Jeff.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for the introduction.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I want to tell everyone that tonight's show is brought to us by Hartzell Propeller, their amazing line of aluminum and carbon fiber propellers. We just did a show back with Brian Schiff, our last Cockpit to Cowl show, that was focused entirely on propeller technology, maintenance, and pilotage. And so I just want to encourage people to go out to the SocialFlight YouTube channel if you want to learn about that. We may talk about it some, but we went into details and teaching and everything that goes into these cool propellers, and there's a lot of education out there. So that leads directly into your story as well.
Yes, super excited to be working with Hartzell, have them as a sponsor on this video, and just got a new Hartzell on my aircraft. I've had it for maybe like 8 months now, so I feel like I have a lot of good notes about it I can share now that I've been flying it for a while.
Excellent. Well, I want to start back at the beginning. And so if you could kind of take us back to how you got exposed to aviation and kind of got started from the beginning. And this is so important to me, especially for someone to be a woman pilot that we need more of and represent out there. Tell me about your personal story.
Yeah, it's super random, probably not one that you've heard before. I don't come from an aviation background. In fact, I thought that I was going to go in the medical field. My older sister, she's a surgeon. She's 4 years older than me. I was kind of following in her footsteps throughout high school and the start of college. So I did 2 years of pre-med, and then one night I'm on my computer looking up med school and like looking at what my future would look like. Wow, that's expensive. So then I start looking at options. How can I get my med school paid for? So that brings me to military. If you sign up for the military, you can get your med school paid for. So then I'm looking at, what kind of doctor can I be in the military? And then I come across aerospace medicine. I was like, wow, that's really intriguing, aerospace medicine. I wonder if those doctors get to travel, which obviously they don't. That's stupid. But I was like, I wonder if they
No,
get to.
no, hey, that's not stupid. That's what I would think that too.
I was like, how cool would it be to have this traveling job? And I'm a traveling doctor. And what if I get to take care of the pilots and I get to be on the airplane with them? And then as I just keep going down this little rabbit hole, thank God for Google, I start learning about pilots randomly. And the next day I'm talking to my parents about it, like, wow, I just like started learning about pilots. That's really interesting. And they're like, our neighbor is a Delta pilot. Why don't you go talk to him and ask him about that? So I did, and I went over to him telling him, hey, I'm about to start my, rest of my pre-med. I'm already halfway through, but I kind of have this change of heart. Like, I'm really intrigued about what it's like to be a pilot. So we spent hours one night, and he was so great. Just as you meet anyone in the aviation industry, if you ask them for advice, you're going to get that times 10. You don't even know the can of worms you opened when you ask a pilot a question. And he was so kind, talked to me through everything. At this time, I'm living in Orlando, Florida, and he's like, oh, by the way, you'd be great at this. Why don't you go check out Embry-Riddle? It's in Daytona Beach. And I was like, really? Our family's been vacationing there since I was little, and that's only a little over an hour away from where I live. So I went up there, did a tour of the school. I was so impressed. They had me backseat a flight when I was there. So I backseat on one of their multi-engine flights in a Diamond. That was my very first time in a small aircraft. And of course, once you go up on a flight like that, there's no turning back. There's no, I'm going to go work in an office for the rest of my life. So I signed up, and it was past the deadline to apply for Embry-Riddle. I was like, I'm going to try anyway. And they pushed me through, and just literally days later, I was in flight school.
Wow. So was this after high school or after college or in the middle?
Kind of both. So I was a super nerd in high school. I did 2 years of high school, and then I was like, I'm done with this. This is boring. So I did dual enrollment, which you can go to high school and college at the same time. But instead, I didn't go to high school at all. I just went to college for my last 2 years of high school. So I did those first 2 years of pre-med. In fact, I got my associate's degree before I got my high school diploma.
No
The college
kidding.
like, we don't even know how to assign this because you have to be a high school grad or have a GED to get your diploma. I was like, no, I earned this. You better give it to me. um, so I graduated my 2-year college degree in May, and then graduated high school in June, and then I went to Embry-Riddle.
Wow. And tell me about that experience now between, it's one thing to go up, be in the back, get really hooked into it, but then you have these two paths, right? One is the learning, the education side, everything that you got to learn to be a pilot. And then the other side is just the natural feeling of how comfortable are you actually flying and operating it. What is that? So tell me about your experience with both of those.
Yeah, I felt really comfortable with the flying part. I think that came fairly naturally for me. I didn't feel ever uncomfortable in the small airplane world. And then the material, the way they present it at Embry-Riddle is awesome. I mean, no doubt why they're one of the best colleges that you can go to for aviation. And The interesting thing though is when I started at Embry-Riddle, my only exposure to being a pilot was commercial, and that's how I was introduced to it from my neighbor who worked at Delta. Embry-Riddle has all these partnerships with different airlines, so I was trucking along thinking I was going to be an airline pilot until they had this class that I took just kind of randomly, and it was a corporate aviation class. And it also happened to be a female professor. So I was like, wow, like this is my first time being taught aviation stuff by a female. Like this is really awesome. And then I'm exposed to this corporate stuff, and she's talking about flight departments at NASCAR and all these other like really like glamorous things that she was telling us in this class. I had no idea. It never even crossed my mind. So that's when I first started thinking like maybe commercial's not for me. Like then that's when I was just open-minded to any type of flying and started researching more of different types of pilot jobs than just airline.
Wow. And so you got attracted in that direction of like maybe you don't want to just kind of be in the middle of the race to get to the next largest aircraft
Yeah.
At an airline. Okay,
Yeah.
so take me a little further then. So what was your first job like?
So then I go on to get all my ratings, and I get my CFI and double I, and I start teaching. And then I get a phone call. This is after I got my 4-year degree. I get a phone call from Embry-Riddle saying, hey, do you want to come back and get your master's? And a really sweetheart deal. We want you to come work in the dean's office, and we're going to pay for your master's. We want you back to do your degree and do all these things. I'm like, this sounds amazing. I'm coming back. So I go back to Riddle, start working on my master's. I'm teaching on the side. And then as part of this job that I'm working with the dean, was in charge of putting together this conference that brought together all the different training heads of different airlines and manufacturers and stuff, and it was built for them to talk about how Embry-Riddle and other colleges should be training new student pilots. And so during that time, I was networking, had no idea, again, this all new stuff happening about manufacturer jobs. So there's these sales guys that fly in these brand new planes, and they bring it, they're on display for a luncheon that I had arranged. And the Piper guy flies in, the Cessna guy flies in, the Diamond guy, the Cirrus guy, and they're all hanging out in Daytona Beach for 4 days at this conference. They're going out at night, going for drinks and dinner. And I'm like, this is your job? You fly these brand new planes around, then you go to conferences like this, you hang out with each other. You could tell they were all buddies and they were all happy to see each other. You know, they all go to the same things, the same events. I was like, this is your job? You do it? They're like, yeah, you know, we sell them. So we do demo flights with people. It's like, this is incredible. My mind was blown. So then I was connecting with all of them, but the one that resonated the most was with General Aviation. There was a guy at the time, his name was Cody Honeyman, and he was selling aircraft for them and mentioned that they had an opening coming up, and they fielded it internally and they hadn't filled it yet. And he's like, just so you know, we don't usually hire people from outside the organization, especially without sales experience, blah, 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 blah. He's like, but why don't you try? I was like, sure. So I put my app in through Cody. He helped me out, pushed it through for me. And then 2 weeks later, you see things happen fast for me. 2 weeks later, I'm heading to Chicago to go sell new airplanes and be a demo pilot for Textron.
Wow, that's crazy. And of course, that's how we all started to get to know you. Was it right away that you said like, hey, we can actually sell by making videos, or did that come much later?
It kind of trickled in. So I had started sharing on social media when I was at Embry-Riddle. I didn't have any pilot friends, you know, prior to being in college, and I just wanted to share it, one, to all my friends, you know, from my previous life and be like, hey, look at this cool thing that I'm doing. But also I wanted to connect to other pilots because I didn't have a ton of friends in this space, and especially didn't have any female pilot friends. So I would just kind of start sharing my training journey, and that just kind of went effortlessly to Textron. So then I'm flying these new planes, and I'm like, wow, look at these features. And then I'm getting into sales, Mindy, and I I want to show off how fast these planes are and the endurance, and look at how we can do XM radio and cruise. So I started posting stuff and started to gain a lot of traction. People didn't really get to see that career or get to see kind of behind the curtains at a big manufacturer or get to see these glamorous new aircraft. So it caught a lot of traction quite quickly. Funny enough, a lot of people at Textron had this very old school thinking, as you might imagine, most aviation companies do. So here comes this young girl in, and she's posting all over Instagram, and so many people there were like, hey, you should really cut that out. You're probably going to get fired, like, by sharing stuff. I'm like, this isn't sensitive info. Like, we want people to know this information, right? Like, you can get this info on our website. I'm not, on the factory floor showing our trade secrets. And they're like, yeah, but that's just not how we do stuff here. Whatever. So I'm young enough to not
We're
care.
not that interested in selling aircraft.
So I keep posting, and at one point at Textron, people told me I would get fired for. They eventually made a brand new role for me at Textron in their communications department to spearhead their storytelling and be an internal brand ambassador for them and a spokesperson, do their commercial work. So I'm really happy that I didn't listen to those people.
I am really happy that you didn't listen to those people as well. And I have to say, I mean, looking at the industry of how the OEMs do aircraft and how they market them, you don't, I remember when you started doing that, I remember seeing some of those, and honestly, certainly I responded with like, wow, she's doing a great job, first of all, so congratulations. And second, though, it really struck me as, man, like, about time someone decided to do this, because the way that aircraft, small aircraft, probably jets, everything is sold, is such a small, like, concierge look. Like, we only care about qualifying you first, and then we'll tell you about the aircraft, and then we'll show you the aircraft, and then if you make it to another level, we'll let you fly the aircraft. And it just blew my mind. Like, why are we not casting a wide net? Why do you have to go to one of the big shows to check out what it's really like in this year's latest model of whatever General Aviation aircraft? And there was no really good way of seeing that before you did that.
Yeah, it had made sense to me, because what I was doing on the day-to-day was flying these cross-country trips to other states or whatever, to new airports, unfamiliar airspace, going to meet with clients, flying these longer trips. And that's exactly what we're trying to sell to clients is, hey, use your plane for business and go fly to these airports where you have clients and you're going to meet with other people. You're going to go check on your real estate. And so as I'm doing my job, I get to show them and sell to them exactly how they could use the aircraft and show it in practical ways. And hey, this was my decision making today when the field turned low IFR and I just wasn't comfortable and I did this, or I did get in because I used these special features that made me feel really comfortable, or whatever the story was. It was too easy. I was the one flying the plane around. I share that and they're like, oh, that's what I would be doing.
That's cool. I like that. And the other thing I liked is about getting into, like, kind of snippets about the aircraft, like talking specifically about the automatic climate control that was available, or what other kind of features, or how you do a certain thing. And it's like, yeah, that should exist. You're talking about a really expensive object.
Yeah.
There should be as much of that as someone can consume, whether they are 16 years old and just think it's cool, or whether they are like whatever years old and considering buying that versus a different competitive aircraft.
I agree. And to your point, like before I started putting stuff out and the company got more into digital product, the only way you could learn about new aircraft was attending a show, or you read the website and download a 24-page brochure. That's it. But otherwise, if you were a consumer, you'd have to directly reach out with which a lot of people don't until you're truly ready to buy something. They're not going to call typically and bother the salesperson just to learn more about the plane for a potential future purchase. So it was a great way to get in front of people and just kind of plant the seed several years in advance, like maybe they won't buy a plane tomorrow, but maybe they will in 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you seem to be very enthusiastic and open about kind of, it doesn't matter who it is, that you're willing to talk to them about the aircraft and help them along the sales process, which seems not commonplace, I'll say, in
Mhm.
aviation, in aircraft sales. Like there's a lot of, do I really want to talk to you uh,
Yeah,
up front?
yeah, no, I understand that, and it is hard, especially having this social media presence. A lot of people do reach out to me, and I love that I can be that person. But at the end of the day, I still only have 24 hours like everyone else does. So if it's someone that just wants information, I just try to tell them on the front end, like, hey, I'm happy to talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes. I can't spend 4 hours with you if you're not like planning to buy a plane. Like, I do have a lot to do, but I don't want to be that person that's so shut off and that's like, you can't access me unless you're going to spend money. I
Right.
definitely don't want to be that. So that's why I try to put a lot of information out on Instagram and YouTube for people just to consume and get educated that way. And then if they have more questions, I get a lot of emails. People find my email and they'll send me a couple questions or like, hey, I'm looking to buy this. I don't think you sell it, but what do you think? And I'm happy to hit them back, and just help them out with a couple minutes of time, of
Yeah.
course.
So take me a little further. So you do your career time, of course, with Textron, and what came after that?
Then after that, I started working at Lone Mountain Aircraft and selling used planes, which is really great for a number of reasons. And what kind of led this transition, what had a lot to do with my social media presence. At Textron, you have dedicated sales territories. So you get assigned a couple states that you get to sell into. And then, of course, you're brand limited because you work for that manufacturer. And then another filter on that is selling just the brand new planes, which has a lot of perks. I'll say as a salesperson, you're not dealing with pre-buys, you're not dealing with damage history, you're not dealing with logbooks. There's so many great things about selling new planes. And the technical, knowledge that you get from working from the factory, I don't think I could be where I am today and be successful selling used planes without that factory background. That really helps me. But now, when people reach out to me on social media and they say, hey, I want to buy a plane, but I live in California. I used to have to say, oh, well, I can't help you, and I pass it off to somebody else. Now I can say, okay, great. And what type of plane are you looking for? And they might say, I'm looking for a Piper. And I used to say, oh, well, I can't help you. And now I get to say yes. So like all those filters and qualifications on who I got to work with just were released instantly when I started working for Lone Mountain. So I get to work with any brand, and it doesn't matter if it's a couple years old or if they even want me to help them buy a brand new plane, I can do that too. So it just really opened up a lot of my career to be on the used side.
So tell me a little bit about that process, because you're clearly in a sweet spot of a place you'd love to be, and someone comes to you and they want to buy a plane, and maybe they think they know what they want to buy. Um, maybe they think they know and they're wrong. Like, whatever. How do you help someone? How do you go through that journey with them?
I'll say, so I started selling planes about 8 years ago. When I started to sell planes, that scenario would happen a lot where people thought they knew what they wanted but weren't sure and they want to talk about it and what does this really look like for me? Now, with all the information out online and all the YouTube videos and all the aircraft owners that are putting stuff out there and all the forums, it is so rare for someone to call me and be waffling between two different planes or three or four. People generally know what they want when they call me, which is great because then we get to skip to what I'm really good at, which is the transaction part.
Uh-huh.
It can be hard to get people to the right plane. I do like when they come to me knowing what they want because that conversation sometimes has emotional attachments. You know, it's like, well, you don't really need that plane. It's not the right one for you. I know it looks good in your hangar. So with all the information out there, it's really great. They normally come to me knowing exactly what they want. They know all the numbers. I'm hardly ever talking about performance on an aircraft or anything like that. It's more, hey, Mindy, I want to buy a G5 Cirrus. I'm looking to spend X amount of dollars. What do you have that's available right now, or what do you have coming? So that's mainly where our conversations start.
Really? So are there times though that you find yourself taking your knowledge and sort of wanting to coach them a little bit away from maybe what that position is, or at least educate them, make sure they know what they're getting
Yes.
into? Because we all, you, myself, so many other people in the industry, we know about where the warts are, what people think, and the last thing you want, just being a good human being, is
Yeah.
to sell someone into something that you sort of feel either they might hurt themselves or they might regret.
Yeah, no, I definitely educate. I just try not to bear my opinion on stuff. I remember when I was buying my first aircraft, the first plane I ever bought personally was a Cub Crafter, a little sport Cub. And I remember it was the most frustrating thing whenever I opened it up to people that I trusted and friends and other pilots saying, I really want to buy this aircraft. You get so many opinions from people, and they're like, no, you should buy this because blah, blah, blah. You
No.
should buy this. And it just felt really frustrating because I just felt deflated. Like I knew what I wanted and I was excited about it. And I felt like every person I talked to just like took it to a punching bag. It's like, I don't know, it just reminded me that everyone had to put their 2 cents in. So I don't want to be a point of frustration for buyers. So I want to educate them and tell them the real facts. And of course, if what they think the plane is not, I would be the first person to tell them. But it's not up to me, in my opinion, on what they should be purchasing.
You must know different pilots because I've never met an opinionated pilot.
Well, it's almost like people think that they will gain credibility by telling you something bad about what you want to do. It's like
Yeah.
the thing that people do of like they think that that's their worth, is being like, oh, watch out for this, and you're like, come on, like.
Yeah. And it's the confirmation bias, right? Because there's so much at stake with the decision and the amount of money and the investment and the tech and the connection they have with their airplane that it's
Mhm.
inconceivable that
Right,
this is not the only right choice on the
correct.
planet.
Yes,
And
I don't want to deflate anyone. I'll give them the facts, and of course, you know, I like to know about their pilot experience, like you said, to make sure that it's something that I think that they could handle and that makes sense for them. But outside of that, if it's not a plane I like, but that's what their dream plane is, cool, good for them. Like,
it's also got to be a lot of fun. I mean, the idea of connecting someone with something that they're so excited about. I mean, it's a joyous experience. If it were, they buy the plane, they're excited. Like that's got to be the fun part.
yeah, there's a lot of tension throughout selling aircraft, as you can imagine, throughout pre-buys and negotiations, and buyer and seller don't agree on this, but when you get to the finish line and they get the keys and they fly away, then they send you a picture of it in their hangar, you can just tell they're so happy. That's the best part.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. So take me back to the actual Schmiiindy channel and kind of making it your own. And I have to start by saying, okay, where's Schmiiindy come from and the three eyes and the whole thing?
There's not this like crazy story to it. If you haven't picked up, I just kind of like do things quickly. And I remember Instagram coming out, and me and some of my girlfriends were sitting on the floor and we're all typing in our new usernames. And I was like, I don't know what to put in. You know, of course, you never put in your actual name. You know? And just one of my friends just was like, you should put Schmiiindy in. I was like, okay, and just typed it in. It's been like that ever since. It's never.
With all the eyes.
Well, actually, I originally had it with one eye. Then I thought I wanted to change my username one day, so I changed it for like a day and went to change it back, and somebody already took my username. So then it got three eyes. But yeah, no, there's no like, it's not like a childhood nickname or anything. Now people do call me Schmiiindy. Like even my husband like calls me Schmiiindy. My best friends call me Schmiiindy or Schmin. It's just like now it's a nickname, but it wasn't prior.
Not many people get to choose their nickname later in life. I like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
it's stuck now.
So what, I mean, obviously when people do that, they start to create what your identity is online, meaning not like you're inventing yourself, but what message you want to send, what you're trying to actually do. So tell me about how that evolved to be what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm sharing online, I always want to inspire people to enjoy aviation. There's not a lot of us that get to do this wonderful thing of flying. It's such a small percentage of us, and what an accomplishment it is to become a pilot, or even a private pilot. How cool is that? So, I'll say one of the things that really inspired me to post a lot more was watching a lot of my friends from Embry-Riddle become airline pilots. And then all of a sudden, it's like, can't believe you fly that 182. Like, you lost it. You lost all your passion. Now you're just driving the bus. I can't stand it. So I want to encourage people that no matter where your aviation career takes you, or maybe it's just a hobby, that general aviation, especially in our country, is something that I am so thankful for, and I want people to continue to use and be a part of. I don't want it to ever go away. And I want people to enjoy it with their families. Another thing that inspired me was through selling aircraft. Of course, my clients are generally male, and when I sell them a plane and I'm dreaming with them about what they're going to do with their plane, and I got so much about my spouse, my wife, my family will never get in this small plane with me. They would never. They're scared. They hardly want me to fly it. So I just really wanted to show people that you can go take your family in these planes and go have fun and go on adventures and unlock parts of the country that you never thought you would get to see. And so that's been really fun because me and my husband, we travel and film a lot together. And I hope that that has inspired a lot of other couples to take up aviation together.
I think it really has, and I love seeing that interaction between you and Kevin and how all that works, and it's cool because you come at it from different perspectives, right? From the pilot and the the air traffic controller perspective. There's a lot of very cool discussions that you've had. Is there anything or experience or story that really pops to mind right now having to do with both your different experiences while you're flying?
Not in particular. We have so many conversations about exactly what you just talked about, our different worlds and how they collide. And I've got to take tours of the facilities that he's worked at, Orlando Approach and Atlanta Center, and just get a better appreciation of what they see versus what we do in the cockpit. So if anyone ever has access to be able to do that, they don't hold like public tours. However, if you know someone or can reach out to someone at an ATC facility, you can ask them if you can come visit, and I've never heard them turn anyone away, especially if you can kind of create a little group of people to go. So that's really great, but it's really great when he comes home from work and we basically have story time. I share my flying stories and he shares his ATC stories, and it's just a very rewarding relationship to be able to share this together.
That's awesome. And I will say I've learned a lot and also had questions that come up just watching some of the videos that you have and even what happened separate. There was one I was looking at earlier today where there was an aircraft on the radio where you were flying that had in IMC that had an alternator failure, and they were letting that aircraft come in ahead, and then there was another aircraft that had already been cleared for the approach, but the tower wasn't responsive to them as they were
Yes.
coming in because they were dealing with the rest of it, and they decided to either wave off, go missed, or do something different. And it immediately popped into my head like, wow, I fly IFR. I never really thought too much about what if I'm cleared for the approach, but I don't actually get a response from the tower. Do I land? Like,
Yep.
what happens? So talk to me a little bit about that. That's a perfect example.
I had thought the same thing. because when they broke off, you could hear and they announced saying, November 1, 2, 3, 4, we're breaking off the approach, and you hear the controller like almost have a meltdown. It's like,
Losing their mind.
no! Yeah. And so when I shared that video with my husband, Kevin, the controller, I told him, he's like, oh my gosh, they shouldn't have broken off of that. And I was like, I didn't have that instant reaction. I don't know what I would have done. Now I know. And then he explained a little bit more that, you know, once the local clears you for the approach, like, don't break off of it. You got to stay on there. But I had the same thought as you. Like, I didn't have that knee-jerk reaction that he had the same as the controller. Like, no, what are you doing? Like,
But I'll even challenge that a little bit. I mean, you know, why not break off that approach? Because if you haven't been cleared to land and you are on, let's say, short final, I mean, then you've got to make a decision on that. Like, you always have the right to break off an approach. I mean,
yeah.
at any time. So I don't
I
think it
don't
was totally clear.
Agreed. I don't think that they were close to touching the wheels down. I think that maybe that's a factor too, to stay on the approach as long as you can, especially in that busy Florida airspace where they just kind of broke off willy-nilly. I don't know. I don't think that they even were flying the missed approach. I'm not sure. But I agree. I would have gotten as close as possible and gave the controller as much time as possible to get back to me before
Yeah,
just
I
breaking
totally
off.
agree with that. And I think the other thing, of course, as I learned from that and looked into it more, I talked to Brian Schiff about it, got some really good info, is that idea that if you've been cleared for the approach, you are safe. You are safe to do that approach, certainly at least to the missed approach point. And
Yeah,
and so there's no reason to worry about that before that point. And so I certainly agree with that. And then at some point, you've got to make a decision what you think is safer for you, whether that's to go back up into the super, whether that if you have the runway in sight and you do not see a problem to land, even if tower hasn't had a chance to clear you.
right. So situational, you know,
Yeah,
weather dependent, your own equipment, what does your own fuel look like? Like, there's so many factors that could come into that decision making.
yeah. So talk to me about your plane, Mojo. I want to talk to you. Okay, you've got this 1957 182. It's absolutely gorgeous. Obviously,
Thank
you
you.
polish it all the time.
Yes.
Um, so tell me about getting the plane, what it's like to fly it, and then I want to hear about this Hartzell testing that you did with your new propeller.
Sure. So it's a vintage 1957 182. They started making 182s in 1956. So we
Oh,
let them have a full year of, you know, working out all the bugs before this one. But me and my husband, after the Cub Crafter that I had at the time, we were living at a grass strip in Georgia, and he had wanted to become a pilot, so he got his pilot license, and then my mission changed from kind of a Sunday afternoon flyer to, oh, we're both pilots now. We both really enjoy this now. We want to go on these weekend warrior trips and go a little bit further, take a little bit more than just a t-shirt with us and the Cub. So decided that we want a 182. We are searching for a 182 for months and months and months. And we are looking at like Q models and late 70 models. And then this one pops up on Facebook one day. We're sitting on the couch in the evening, and my husband showed me, he's like, look at this 182. Of course, it's flashy, it looks gorgeous, it's bare aluminum polish, and it's got the black and teal stripes. I've never seen anything like it. I was like, wow, that's gorgeous. And we were just so shopping exhausted at that point. We had looked at so many planes that just either fell through or had XYZ problem with it, which turned us away. So we find this plane, we start learning more about it, and it's such low time. It had less than 2,000 hours total time whenever they had posted this listing, and less than 500 hours on the engine, beautiful mint condition. It was used as a barn hangar in Montana. This guy owned it for many years to check up on his cattle. He owned several hundred thousands, whatever acres. And so he would take these very short flights where he'd go up, check on his cattle, come back around, and that was it. Then one day decided to sell it, and then eventually we get our hands on it. So ever since I've had it, my goal has been to upgrade it and restore it and I want to keep its vintage character, but I also want to make it a safe flying platform. I want to be able to monitor the engine. I want to be able to fly IMC if I need to. It's not my main goal with this aircraft, but it has came in handy to have a new Garmin panel on it. So just trying to make it not a hangar piece. I don't want it to be just a Sunday afternoon flyer. I want it to be more than that. I want it to be really capable, but keep this beautiful vintage charm. And the latest upgrade has been the Hartzell prop, which I have been really stoked about.
Yeah, it is. That is really amazing. I wanna show this. Let's bring up one of these pictures right now because it is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was so fun. So when we decided to partner with Hartzell, I had a 2-blade Macaulay prop, upgraded it to this 3-blade prop with Hartzell, a top prop, which means it comes with the new spinner too. So I had this really old, dull spinner that was really rounded and this 2-blade tired prop. It was time for an upgrade. So Hartzell made sense for a lot of reasons for me. I was really familiar with it from selling airplanes. A lot of the planes I sell have Hartzell. I had been familiar with the company for several years and the people that worked there, and just really aligned with their brand and their craftsmanship. And then I went to Hartzell Field. I went to their headquarters to get this installed, and when I was there, it just really sold it to me even more to meet the team, but see how they're made there and the craftsmanship that goes involved in creating these propellers, which was something that I never done a deep dive in. I just think I've always took props for granted, I guess. But now that I know so much more about them, it's important, in my opinion, to be intentional about the propeller. It's a very important piece of equipment.
It very much is, and I like that phrasing. I like the idea about to be intentional about your propeller. There's a lot to it, and of course, in this case, I think they didn't have a composite available for yours at the time, so you've got aluminum at the moment, which is a fantastic propeller, and you actually saw performance improvements going from a 2 to a 3, and even in cruise, which is really rare. Like
I know.
usually a 3-blade propeller, you add more blades, you get off the runway better, it's smoother, it's quieter, all these things, but it's not usually faster than a 2-blade. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. We gained maybe about 2 knots or so, which is abnormal. Of course, they professionally balanced the prop when I was at Hartzell. That could have something to do with it. But we did gain a little bit of cruise, gained a lot in our cruise climb performance. It added 20 pounds, of course, going to a 3-blade. But the most interesting thing is I've always had problems with my engine temperature on my aircraft. I don't have cowl flaps. So especially being based in Florida and we're climbing out on a hot day, I have to reduce power and point the nose down pretty soon after I take off, which is frustrating because I, of course, want to get to a nice safe altitude, but my engine temps won't let me some days. My CHGs will go crazy. I don't like them to go over 400, and some days it's almost instant there. But with the new 3-blade and the new spinner of having this whole top prop package, my CHTs are significantly cooler during our takeoff and climb. So now on hot days, I might get a couple thousand feet in the air before I have to think about reducing power or pitching the nose down for some more airflow, or might not even have to make adjustments at all now, which is incredible because that has been a pain point for me with this aircraft.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's an interesting point that people don't necessarily think about too often. That is another advantage going from 2 blades to 3 blades is with more disc area, essentially, of the propeller that you have, that the part of it that is over your inlets and that is bringing the air in for cooling purposes in addition to just forward momentum is definitely increased. So it's pretty cool that you saw a big change in that.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I was looking for. Of course, that's not something that's advertised by Hartzell. Wasn't something that was mentioned by them, but I flew up there in June. It was summer and had all these engine problems, of course, engine temperature problems on the way up, always fighting that. And then just started noticing on the way back, like, wow, like engine temperatures are looking a lot better. And then over time, just kind of put it all together that it was because of the prop, that's when all those issues kind of went away.
Wow. So what's it been like flying with it since then, since you went and you did your testing? And I'll encourage people, go to your YouTube channel, the Schmiiindy with 3 eyes YouTube channel, as well as Instagram, and you'll be able to see there's a video all about the details. You go and lay out exactly what the testing is, and people get to see the details of going from that 2-blade to the 3-blade. It was, what, a 2-blade Macaulay to the 3-blade aluminum Hartzell, correct?
Yeah, and the Hartzell team helped us design a test flight. So we flew up there, and on one morning we did a before flight test flight with this kind of flight profile that they designed for us, and jotted down all the numbers. And then the very next morning with the new Hartzell on, same time, we tried to get the same conditions as much as possible. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, and I'm not a test pilot, so just did our best, but it was really neat to be able to compare that data, and yes, made a YouTube video about it for anyone who wants to see all the details about exactly what we saw on our test flights.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things I got a kick out of in that is how you made some comment about you've now discovered that you don't want to be a test pilot.
Yeah, you do a lot of just like sitting and waiting, because on some of these legs, like for cruise, they wanted us to fly a complete box. But before you start timing each leg of the box, you have to fly for at least it was either 1 or 2 minutes. That way everything is stabilized. And then you start the timer for a 1-minute leg. So it's just a lot of like sitting there and waiting. I was like, man, this isn't as exciting as I thought it would be.
It's not quite what we saw as kids on like videos of, like, you know, what it was like trying to keep an aircraft online of a completely new design. Yeah, I have friends that are test pilots, and then they show me their courses that they're, what do you do today? It's like, I flew circles for 8 hours.
That's exactly, yeah, just flew grids.
Exactly. Well, it's definitely cool, and it made a huge difference in there. And again, I will also encourage anyone, if you want to learn more about that, to go to that, go check out that video also that we did on the differences, because we really talked about, I think in your future at some point, when they certify, will probably be one of their carbon fiber ones, and then you can do another video showing what this amazing cool profile is, and that's the big difference, right? Is aluminum propellers, you've just made this leap to that point, and yet since essentially since we evolved from only wooden propellers to metal propellers, we have been stuck there where you still can only take away material over time in maintenance. Well, you know, once you get to composites, you can make crazy shapes, crazy improvements, amazing stuff, but they're also blades that can last forever because you can add material to them.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty neat. I would love to have one day. We're super happy with ours for now. I think it's great. It added so much ramp appeal. Like, I think it just really completed what I was trying to do with this aircraft. I don't have any other major upgrades on the horizon. I think that I'm just gonna kind of lay low on that for a while. But that really was the last piece I had out there, was needing to take care of that old prop and upgrade it to something else, and took a lot of time to decide what that next step would be for the plane. Just do what was best, and Hartzell was a perfect choice.
that's awesome. And how has your technique of flying changed based on the propeller? Because I will say, when we did that on the Bonanza, we did have to change, like flare changed and approach changed. There were things that definitely changed. And we were
Yeah.
still going between 2 3-bladed props.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
That's
just going from a Macaulay 3-blade to the Hartzell 3-blade, no question, technique had to change. I didn't look great for those first couple landings. Now, now they're all greasers. Oh, no. But yeah, it took a little adjustment.
it's a little bit heavier. Of course, it added 20 pounds, and I I'd say I noticed it on the very first flight or two, but I didn't notice significant changes. I didn't change anything up significantly from what I was doing before. So I didn't have that totally same experience, but I did notice on the first flight or two, like, oh, it just feels a little bit heavier when I'm coming in on short final. But that quickly went away.
Did you find on like getting down a 3-blade prop gives you like more drag if you pull back? Does it give you an ability to get down a little faster with all that surface area?
Yeah, it does. I've always been one in the 182, at least my 182, that I always come in just above like the visual glide path. I always come in a little bit steeper. And now I think that I kind of would have to with this prop, that it really likes to come in with that profile versus coming in flat.
Mm-hmm.
So just keeping that kind of same technique with this prop.
That's very, very cool. Hey, there's another video also I want to direct people to on your channel, and there's actually two, right? One is your ability to go fly with the Blue Angels, and another one is talking about how you did it. Tell me about your experience, because this talk about getting into rarefied air. You're getting the back seat with the Blue Angels. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I got to be a media writer in Pensacola with the Blue Angels and the F-18 Super Hornet. Best day of my aviation life. It's complete. What do you look forward to after that? Not a complaint, but I feel like I've peaked.
I don't think the rest of us think you peaked. It's okay.
Well, what's extra special was being able to go to the Pensacola one. So basically at every air show that the Blues do, they will pick what's called a key influencer and a media writer. A key influencer is someone from the local community that's doing really great things. Maybe they're a teacher and they're going above and beyond for their students, or maybe they're a firefighter that did something heroic. Someone that's nominated in the community for something like that is the key influencer. So it's not like a social media influencer. And then a media writer. And the goal of the media writer is to for them to go up with the Blues, and they might do a little piece on that, but their main goal is to highlight the key influencer and why that person got picked to go fly with the Blues. And then it's almost like the media writer gets to go up on a ride kind of as a thanks for being part of this and reporting on this type thing, because a lot of the media writers don't even report on their own ride. They're just reporting on the key influencer's ride.
Mm.
So a long story short, I was lucky enough to be chosen as a media writer. So I did reporting on the key influencer during that day, which I kind of used my broker skills. I still called all the local news people and said, hey, I have a story for you. And it went out the same way as if they would have sent their own anchor, but instead I got to go on the ride. But in addition to that, so normally a media writer, let's say they send up a Fox News anchor or whoever, they'll just put out that day some stuff on the local news plus a online article. So I did all that, plus got to put it on my own social channels. So I got to really amplify it even further than what normally happens. I'm a writer for Twin Turbine magazine, so I wrote a cover story feature on the ride. I put out YouTube videos, Instagram stuff, had all these articles about the key influencer out. So I did a lot of coverage for them, and that was really exciting to work with them.
That's awesome. I love that, and they are great videos. So I encourage anyone who gets a chance, get out there and check those out, because that is, it's wonderful to watch. It's wonderful to see how excited you were to have that experience, and the rest of us to be able to live vicariously through you. So that was fantastic.
They were excited too, because they don't normally get pilots that get to go on the rides. The key influencer and the media writer are hardly ever pilots. That's really rare for them. So one of the funniest stories I'll share from that day was we're in the briefing room with the crew chief, and she is giving us our briefing on the ride and how to combat G's, and this is what you're going to see when you sit in the F-18. You can touch these buttons, don't touch these buttons, all that type of stuff. And then at this point, no one there knew that I was a pilot, and my husband was there with me too. They had no idea that we were in aviation. This was just kind of at the beginning of the day. And so she's going through and she's like, I just want you guys to know that your pilot today is a phenomenal pilot. And well, duh, he's a Blue Angel. And she's like, He has so much flight time. He is very experienced. He has 600 hours. And I can like feel my husband reacting next to me. I'm like about to kick him, like, don't you dare say anything. And so like then we walk out and Kevin's like, did you hear that your pilot has 600 hours? I'm just like, yes, I did. That's probably a lot for this. I don't know. This is different. So then my husband, he's a pretty cheeky guy. Of course, he had to go up. He's like, I flew with a guy whose call sign was Buddy. He's like, hey, Buddy, just want to let you know, Mindy's a pilot. He's like, really? He's like, yeah, she has more flight hours than you. I was like, Kevin, don't say that. Now I'm definitely gonna get hurt in this airplane. Sure enough, I got G-lock. I was like, this is all you.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Oh yeah. All right. Go
Right,
figure.
for career pilots, you're like, wow, 600 hours, he's brand new. But obviously in the military, they have way different style training and all this other stuff. It was just a funny story because then the rest of the day, my husband, everyone else was poking the bear about his quote low time. They took it really well. They obviously knew it was a joke, so it was a funny moment.
What was your G-lock like? That's G-induced loss of consciousness.
Yeah, that was scary. That was in one of the last maneuvers. I thought I was doing really well, and so maybe I got a little too confident and let down a little, but it's really like the hardest workout you've ever done going on one of these flights because you have to like push all your muscles as tight as you can. There's a special breathing technique, and so we were in the plane for almost an hour. Like it's quite a long flight. It's not a 10-minute rendezvous. So when you're out there, you get tired, and of course the maneuvers get harder as the flight goes on. So the very last maneuver, I think it was called a sneak attack to vertical rolls. So they get really low. We were over the ocean in my case, and we're at 600 plus knots over the ground, over the ocean, and then they pull straight up, and then they go into these vertical rolls, and just it pulls G's for a very, very long time. That's the problem. If it's quick, you can kind of get through anything, but if it's extended G's, that's when you have an issue. And so I passed out, and then I wake up, and my immediate response is to apologize. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been unconscious. He's like, if you wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have even known. And I was really only out for about 2 seconds. It felt like an eternity to me when I woke up and just kind of like gathered myself. I was still under G's when I woke up. So my initial reaction was to try to move my body, and I couldn't. So like in this phase of like not knowing what was going on in this brain fog, I thought like something really bad happened because I couldn't move my arms. I could only wiggle my fingers. Come to find out, the maneuver wasn't over. Like we're still pulling G's. That's why I can't move my body. So just a very like alarming experience to wake up in the back of an F-18 and be like, what's happening?
I think it's probably an alarming experience for anyone to wake up in the back of an F-18. Yes.
Yeah, very much.
Oh, that is really wonderful. Well, Mindy, it is time at the end of our show now to do something we like to call Social Flight's Fast Five. How do you feel about that? You up for that?
I guess so. Let's go.
All right. Mindy, Schmiiindy, Lindheim, this is your Social Flight's Fast Five. 5 questions to let people get to know you a little bit better, in addition to what they already know about you from your YouTube channel and your Instagram. And so I'm going to start with question number 1, which is you've had the opportunity, especially as an aircraft broker with all the different experiences that you've been in, to fly all sorts of different aircraft out there. Which one of those is kind of closest to your heart when you think about the actual flying experience?
Out of the planes that I've sold and like, really specialized in selling, my favorite planes to sell and to fly were always the Baron and Bonanza. They're really robust, and it's those planes that when clients look at the numbers on paper, it's like, oh, there, those numbers are pretty good. The Bonanza, you go 175 knots and you're burning 15 gallons per hour or whatever. They're like, yeah, these numbers are okay. But when you take them on a demo flight, that's when it's like, wow, this plane's amazing. Like, there's nothing like flying a Baron or a Bonanza. They handle so well, they fly so well, and demoing people in it was the best because I knew they would want to buy it.
Oh, wow. Well, you are speaking close to my heart since I'm a Bonanza pilot and owner. And I'll say that when I went and met with a broker and flew different aircraft, I wasn't sure whether I was looking at the Piper, the 6 line or the Bonanza, and he just looked at me like, let's go fly both. It'll be over. And that's
Yeah,
exactly what it was.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Any chance they're going to bring them back? Any chance they're going to start production again?
I don't know. That's out of my hands now, Jeff. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right, question number 2. During all of that flying experience that you had, was there either a scary or impactful moment from that flying that you believe you learned something from?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all of us as pilots, eventually in your career, you're going to push yourself into a spot where you get really uncomfortable and you're like, wow, I'm never going to do that again. I've had several of those. None of us are perfect. Even if you run everything by the book, you're going to get in situations that might scare you, but it's important just to learn from it and continue to move on. And especially when I was a new demo pilot, speaking of the Baron, one of my first solo flights in the Baron was going to Talladega, and they had special flight rules getting in, and it was an IFR IMC day and all these jets going in, and I just kind of punched in, not willy-nilly, but I'd never gone into an event like that before where there's all these like special procedures going on and it's a cluster and everyone's coming in at the same time, and I'm in this new to me plane and it's IMC and now you're holding, and it just like felt like a lot. Everything went well and I was really proud of myself when I landed, and I felt very rewarded by the flight, but I was also like, that was a lot. Like I probably should look at the future at all the factors that are happening. So, a lot of people talk about the triangle of like icing, mountains, and night, and you should never have two of the three or whatever. I think there's more than just those 3 points. Is the plane new to you? Have you flown an IMC in a while? Have you ever flown into an event where there's a lot of aircraft, high performance jets coming in at the same time? Are you prepared to hold? Like, there's more than just those 3 factors that you should take into account.
That makes a lot of sense. Very, very, very good advice. Okay, question number 3. If you had the opportunity to go back to some moment of flying, some experience that you had, just to relive it for 15 minutes or so, that was wonderful. Is there some moment that was close to your heart?
Yes, for sure. My favorite flight was bringing home the first plane I ever bought, and I was living my dream out on this grass strip in a hangar home, and it was my very first solo ever in a tailwheel, which was my own plane going to my house, and just a surreal moment where I landed and I pull off the grass and my husband's in the driveway where our hangar is, and tears just falling down my face, just like can't believe that this is happening to me. I've been selling planes and I never thought I'd own one, and not only did I buy one, but now I'm a tailwheel pilot and I just had my first solo in it, and I just landed at this challenging grass strip and this is my hangar. It's just like you can't believe that all these things are real sometimes. So that was definitely my favorite flight.
Oh, I love that. What a wonderful story. Okay, question number 4. If you could go back in time to the little Mindy, what advice would you give her based on what you've been so far in life?
To not be scared of opportunity. I think that something, especially as I get older, and probably as a lot of people get older, is you want to do your best to mitigate risk. I know we use that phrase a lot in aviation, but that's something you can apply to life. You have bills to pay and you might have kids to feed or a family that depends on you, and it can get really scary to chase opportunity. But I think that should be the last thing that you should be fearful of. You should always say yes to the opportunities that in your gut feel like it's meant for you and that you should go after it.
I absolutely love that. And the last question we have for the evening, and that is question number 5 of SocialFlight's Fast 5. If you could choose anyone, alive or no longer with us, someone famous or someone just from your personal life, anyone at all, to spend an evening with, who would that be?
Oh, I've always heard this as like a dinner party question, but I've never been asked it. Um, that's interesting. Like an obvious answer is to want to say Amelia Earhart, but maybe I should just roll with that. That seems a little cliche, but cliches are cliche because they're usually true. So we're gonna go with
There's
that.
no such thing as cliche. If that's who you would want to spend the evening with, I'd be right there with you. Are you kidding me? Amelia
Yeah,
Earhart, like boom,
yeah,
mic drop, no question.
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Mindy, thank you so much for taking time to join us this evening here on Social Flight Live. Again, your YouTube channel, just look up Schmiiindy with 3 eyes, and also over with Lone Mountain Aircraft for anyone who's interested in buying or selling an aircraft, wants a chance to work with Mindy. I really appreciate everything that you're doing to support General Aviation and for taking the time to join us here on Social Flight Live this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And right before I hopped on, I just posted on my Instagram that me and my husband are moving. It's a big surprise to where and to what we're doing. So I hope you guys follow along. And all I can say is I will be using Social Flight Live to find some new aviation events at our new home because I'm going to need to make some new pilot friends. So I hope to catch you guys at some of the Social Flight Live events. Download the app and I'll see you there.
You got it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Goodbye. And thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us here again on Social Flight Live. We'll be back next week. That's February 25th, Tuesday at 8 p.m. with AOPA President Darren Pleasant. He's going to join us here. We're going to learn what it's like to take over that organization. He's new in that role, and what all the wonderful plans and challenges he is looking at moving forward to take AOPA to the next level in the years to come. So be there, sure to join us for that show. I'll also be back on March 11th as well, and that is for our Cockpit to Cowl show. So if you're not signed up for that one, please sign up for that. That is Cockpit, the number 2 and the word Cowl, C-O-W-L. And that's a wonderful show I do with Brian Schiff, where we talk about both issues from the cockpit and the mechanic side on all different topics. And we're going to be talking about autopilots next, autopilot use, maintenance, upgrades, you name it. And so you can see all that on Cockpit to Cowl. Until next time, again, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all blue skies.